Hey there folks, welcome to the Photo Video Show where we explore all things DSLR. I'm your host, Mark Puckett. On today's show, I want to discuss a little bit about the new Canon 6D. And I want to kind of sort of compare it to the Nikon D600 because honestly, there are going to be so many people out there that are either thinking about or really determined to honestly upgrade from a small crop sensor camera to a full frame sensor camera that, depending on your needs, whether it be photographer or videographer, I want to try and help you get the best information that you can possibly get and help you make a more informed decision. So, if you guys are ready, I know that I am, let's begin now. First, let's talk about the considerations. Number 1, we're going to be talking about megapixels. 2, ISO ranges. Number 3, dynamic range. 4, autofocus points. 5, frames per second. 6, video resolutions. 7, your shutter life. 8, the SD card slots. 9, available jacks. And number 10, price. Beginning with the megapixels, the only person that's going to care about these is the photographer. The photographer is going to need more megapixels because the videographer, picking either of these cameras, the maximum resolution that you're going to get is going to be 1080p. So if you want a little extra real estate in your pictures, go with the Nikon D600. Starting off with the D600, you're going to have an expected ISO range of 100 to 6400, which is perfectly acceptable for most photographers that use flashes and things like that, with an expanded range of 50 to 25,600, which could be useful in extremely low or available light settings. Now, on the Canon side, we have an ISO range of 100 to 25,600. Fair enough. Then in the expanded range, we're going all the way from 25,600 to 102,400. That's an almost inconceivable number, but I'll leave that judgment up to you. In either case, with both of these highly expanded ISO ranges, I think that proper lighting is key no matter what. Almost every professional is either going to be using a flash or proper studio lighting to accurately and properly light their scenes and photographic situations. The biggest factor in any case with high ISO is always going to be the noise. If some noise is acceptable in your photographs or your footage, I say go ahead and use it. In either case, both of these cameras are perfectly suitable for both photography and videography if ISO is a deciding factor for you. For those of you just starting out in photography, dynamic range is so important. It is very, very important. So I want you to kind of keep this in mind. While they have tested the Nikon D600, the Canon EOS 6D has yet not been tested. And the only place that I trust to test out photographic equipment is DxOMark. And if you guys haven't checked that website out yet, make sure that you do. You can genuinely get some of the best comparisons and some of the best reviews anywhere on the internet. Fear not, they did compare the Nikon D600 with the Canon 5D Mark III and the 5D Mark II. And as you can see, there is quite a significant difference here. Taking a direct quote from DxOMark's website, this is what they had to say. Dynamic range quality was not much of a contest between the D600 and the 5D Mark III or the Mark II. The D600's image dynamic was nearly 2.5 stops better than its Canon rivals, although it is worth noting that the 5D Mark III equalizes the dynamic range performance of the D600 at around 3200 ISO, and it actually performs better than the D600 at around 8000 ISO. Canon has long been praised for its ability to perform photo miracles in the dark, and the Mark III and the Mark II are no exceptions. However, Nikon has made great strides in improving its low-light image quality, which shows in the D600's low-light performance. It bests the Mark III by nearly 1/3 of a stop and trounces the Mark II by nearly 2/3 of a stop. So, to sum up dynamic range, the Nikon D600 is now a full-on competitor. The biggest difference between the Canon and the Nikon now is price. Now, focus points are genuinely, for the most part, only going to apply to photographers. If you are a videographer, most professionals are going to tell you that you do not want to depend on any autofocus type mechanisms in your camera, especially DSLRs, to pull focus for you. You're going to want to manually rack focus your video clips. That being said, I think this is probably one of the more disappointing categories for both camps involved. The Nikon D600 only offers the exact same focusing system that came with the Nikon D7000, and I gotta be honest, I am not really for sure at all what Canon was thinking with only 11 focus points specifically on this upper consumer grade entry-level pro body camera. I just don't get it at all. I just think that it should have had much more. It should have been some level of improvement, and it should not have been a way to discourage you from buying this one and then making the jump another $1,500 to one of the Canon 5D Mark III. So that being said, here is the importance of having focus points. Having many focus points will give you a lot more flexibility in picking which part of the scene to focus on, and they also give the camera a much better chance of finding the right part of the scene to focus on in more autofocus modes. So in the cross-type versions between the Canon and the Nikon, Canon only has one cross-type autofocus point. Nikon has 9 autofocus points. Now, why is this even important? Why does it even matter? Well, some of the focus points in an autofocus system can only detect horizontal or vertical contrast, but not the both of them. Cross-type focus points can detect both horizontal and vertical, making them the most sensitive and reliable focus points to use. So in my personal opinion, if you are planning to use either of these cameras for photography, the Nikon D600 will win hands down. You're going to want more focus, cross-type autofocus points. It gives you the best reliability. It gives you the most accurate way of acquiring a good focus on the things that really matter. In the frames per second category, there's really not much of a difference here, and this is only going to apply to those of you that are wanting to do photography. So if you are a sports shooter or you like to shoot things that move pretty fast in most cases, the extra half a frame per second is not going to be a deal breaker if you decide to go with the Canon over the Nikon. So in that respect, either one of these cameras is going to be perfect for you in the frames per second department. So taking a look at both of these cameras, both the Nikon and the Canon, both compare exactly the same in the 1080p department, which is awesome. 720p is pretty much the same thing. Thank God they finally included 60 frames per second in both of those. Still, I have no idea why they don't add one to the 1080p like the new Sonys do, but these two are the ones that confuse me. Why anyone, especially in high-end cameras such as these, why anyone would include standard definition is beyond me. I don't even know anyone that still uses standard definition, let alone wants it in their high-end DSLR bodies these days. Since this area is only going to affect videographers, either one of these cameras are going to work perfectly fine for you. You've got all the major frame rates in both 1080p and 720, so if you are a videographer looking for a camera, either one of these are going to fit the bill. Your shutter life is going to affect both photographers and videographers. So it's very important that we get one that has as many as possible. So each shutter use both counts when you're taking a picture and when you flip it up to start recording a video. So the Nikon D600 starts off with 150,000 shutter accusations. The Canon 6D has a shutter life rating of 100,000, which is 50,000 less than the Nikon. So in the spirit of making sure that you get as much use out of your camera for the exact same amount of money without having to go and replace your shutter, the Nikon wins this one without a doubt. In the case of card slots, Nikon has decided to go ahead and stay with a dual card slot system, much like the D7000, although a bit different from the D800, which has both an SD card slot and a compact flash card slot. Canon, I have no idea, refuses to add any extra storage for their users. I really wish that they had added some more card slots. In this particular case, it affects both photographers and videographers. I just believe that in the world of high def, everyone should have more options. So if storage is a deciding factor for you, definitely go with the Nikon on this one. The addition of audio and video jacks are going to be mainly geared toward videographers. So, starting off with the Nikon, we get headphone and a microphone jack, which was just like the recent released Nikon D800. Surprisingly enough, the Canon only came with a microphone jack. Canon has unwisely omitted an all-important headphone jack from the 6D. Without it, there is no way to monitor what you are actually recording in the camera. The same as older cameras like the 5D Mark II, 7D, and 60D. By contrast, the Nikon D600, D800, Sony A99, and Canon 5D Mark III all have a headphone jack. Quoted by Dan Chung over at DSLR News Shooter. This is mainly going to only affect the run and gun style of videographers, but if you happen to have older equipment such as the Zoom H4n or the Juiced Link external audio recorder, you're not going to have any issues plugging these things directly back up into your new Canon, and it'll work perfectly fine just like it always did. Boiling it all down, when it comes right down to it, we really are swayed a lot by the price of the gear that we buy. The Nikon D600 is going to come in at $2,100. The Canon is also going to come in at $2,100. So what it really kind of boils down to for me is which one is going to better suit my needs. And from what I can tell, as of this moment, the Nikon D600 is far and away the better choice. Not only does it take better pictures, has more memory, more storage, more options, just more of everything. I think by now the choice ought to be pretty clear. So there you have it, folks. I hope this information comes in useful and handy for all your purposes and needs and suches and whatnot. So if you would, find us on Facebook and Twitter. Come be our friends and our pals. And don't forget to join us over at via.me. Yes, very nice. So, thanks again for stopping here at the Photo Video Show. I'm your host, Mark Puckett, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye-bye.